a few days later, as things begin to pick up in the media, some international media is reporting on it, local media is getting obsessed with it, the university sends us all emails. And they're like, you know what, we think you guys may have broken some school rules. We need to sit down and talk about this. And so 8 of us were actually Irvine students. 3 of us were Riverside students. And even just as a side note, for, sometimes people are like, oh, you guys are all Palestinian. The only 3 Palestinians were actually the Riverside students. The rest of us were a mix of different ethnicities and backgrounds. And so the 3 Riverside students deal with the UC Riverside administration, which is one of our sister schools in the UC system. And so the 8 of us deal with UC Irvine, and we actually begin to go through a long, intensive 7-month academic disciplinary procedure. We begin in February and we go until early September, at the end of which we are academically disciplined individually, and the Muslim Student Union is held responsible by the university for helping organize this protest and is also suspended. Originally for a year, later on appeal, it was reduced to a quarter suspension, which is 10 weeks in our academic system. And so we thought, you know what, okay, that's the end of the road. There's no way it goes beyond that. Although, a few weeks later, a few months later, I'm not really sure exactly when, the district attorney, we hear, has sent out investigators into Orange County, where Irvine is situated, and has begun to investigate the case by going and really harassing and intimidating some of the students on our campus, whether it was showing up at 5 a.m. at someone's house on a Sunday morning, banging on the door and yelling, police, 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 open up. And then when parents would come and open up the door, and parents would be like, and this is not just at 5 a.m., but at other times as well, whether it was during, the school year. So students are off on campus at school, and the parents would be home, and they would answer the door, and they'd be like, my son or daughter is not here. And then the investigators would be like, no, I know they're in here. And it really became this long, intensive, really intimidation by the district attorney for over a month, targeting a lot of the different students. Upwards of a dozen students were intimidated, and their families intimidated in this fashion by the district attorney's investigators. And so we begin to get all this information, kind of through the grapevine, because we're a student community. We hear things, and people talk, and we get word of this. And so our attorneys find out also, and they begin to investigate a little bit, and we find out that actually the district attorney has begun to initiate felony investigatory processes and procedures. Really, I know that may sound complicated. He's just trying to get a felony. And so he begins to he starts a grand jury, summons a grand jury, which is only done in felony cases, and really, serious cases, along with grand jury subpoenas in order to get people to come and testify, and enacting search warrants. And with a grand jury subpoena, in order for you to get subpoenaed, you have to have your papers delivered to you. And you have to be summoned directly by the investigator. They can't come and give it to your mom. They can't come give it to your dad, your brother, a friend. It has to be in your hand itself. And so the investigators would, for example, pull someone out of they pulled one girl out of a midterm. They pulled one girl out of a midterm in order to hand her papers. Another student was driving home and had pulled over to pick up gas or something, and then got his papers handed to him that way. An unmarked Crown Victoria just pulls up next to him, and a guy with a suit comes out, and here you go. And so really they put a lot of time and effort into subpoenaing these students. And along with search warrants, the DA himself actually filed a search warrant in order to get all of our emails from Google, from Yahoo, from Hotmail, all these different email providers, and ended up with almost 100,000 documents of our emails. And so we're like, okay, let's get ready for this. We get criminal defense attorneys and other attorneys to help out with some of the initial attorneys that were working on the case. And it comes to about early February of 2011, a full year after the protest had occurred. And the statute of limitation for a misdemeanor, the amount of time you have to file a misdemeanor, is 365 days within the state of California. After 365 days, you can no longer file a misdemeanor. You can only file a felony. So I guess the DA realized very close to that date of February 8th, 2011, full 365 days, either on February 6th or February 7th, he officially filed charges for a misdemeanor. I guess he realized he did not have enough for a felony in the end. And so he filed 2 misdemeanors, the first being conspiracy to disturb a public meeting and disturbance of a public meeting. And so I don't know where he came up with the charges with. They've been in the California Penal Code for a very long time, over 100 years, I believe. And I think maybe 3 or 4 people have been actually been found guilty of those charges. So there's just something within, like you have to wipe off the dust before you open it up because it's never really been used. And so it's clear at this point that we're going to trial, and that we're going to have a court case ahead of us. The DA, though, before all of this, wants to sit down and engage in a settlement negotiation and really begin to talk about settling the case outside of court. And we sit down at the table with the district attorney, Tony Rackauckus of Orange County. It wasn't really much of a negotiation. It was more of, here's the offer, take it or leave it. And his offer was you plead guilty and you do some community service, and that's it. But for us, the biggest part of the deal was pleading guilty. And we didn't believe we did anything wrong. We didn't believe that we had committed a crime, and we weren't going to allow him to score some cheap political points by just kind of hanging us out to dry. Hey, look, everybody, I got them. You know what? They're guilty. They admitted to it. It's done. It's over with. And that's really what I believe is what he was trying to accomplish. He didn't want to go through a long, troublesome court case. He was really just trying to intimidate us, because the district attorney himself actually sat down at the table with us, which is unheard of for a district attorney to come and sit down at the settlement table with a bunch of misdemeanor charges. It doesn't happen. This is someone who's extremely busy. He's an elected public official, and he's taking his time out to sit down at the settlement table with us. And so we're like, there's no way we're taking this deal. So boom, we're going to court, and now we're going to trial. And in the course of the pretrial motions that goes on for some time, we end up going through discovery in which both sides have to present the evidence of the case. And so the 100,000 documents are presented to us at that point in time. Our lawyers are flipping through the documents, and they realize that a bunch of the emails are emails between us and our attorney, which is attorney-client privilege, and it's illegal to use for a district attorney in a court case. It's protected, confidential conversation. And so our attorneys bring this up, and they file a motion to get this stuff stricken down and to really have some type of punishment for the district attorney in this regard. And so we go file a motion. The judge ends up siding with us, stating that 20,000 of the 100,000 documents are actually illegally obtained by the district attorney. Now, one of those documents is key, because one of those documents was the email from Hakeem, the 11th student, to the attorney saying, hey, I'm the one that was leading the chants. That's why the police grabbed me. And so with that being stricken out, really the main piece of evidence against Hakeem is out of the picture. And so the DA returns to the settlement table with Hakeem by himself and offers him 40 hours of community service and a no guilty plea. Your charges will be dropped. And so all of us are like, you know what, Hakeem, great deal. Take it and just go. So he takes it. Not guilty, no charges completely dropped. He finishes the community service, everything, it's cool. But the rest of us, and that's how and the reason why I mention this is because this is how we became the 10 students on trial rather than 11 students. That is the 11 versus 10 discussion. And so we end up going through a bunch of pretrial motions, and it keeps going and going and going for a few months. And then finally our trial is set to begin in late August, early September. And it's originally supposed to begin in late August. The DA had a 10-day discretion period in which he's allowed to push a trial back right before it starts. And so the trial ends up starting coincidingly with the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And it's 10 Muslim students on trial in probably one of the more racist counties of America, Orange County. And I know California is a Democratic state. It always votes blue, but Orange County always votes red. And even amongst Californians, it's known as Red County because of its Republican nature. And it's rough out there for people of color and for Muslims as well. And really, there has been a long history of really brutal and violent Islamophobia within Orange County. And at even one point in time, some Muslims had a charity event almost a year ago. You can look it up, Your Belinda event within Orange County. And the Tea Party came to protest. This event was a fundraiser to help out for women who had been in domestic abuse cases, something of that nature. And so the Tea Party was protesting, and actually one of the Tea Party leaders, who was a councilwoman, made a statement saying that I know a lot of soldiers who would love to send these Muslims 6 feet under, something in that regard. And so that's Orange County for you. That kind of stuff flies in Orange County.